Atelier Yumia is the next entry in the long-running crafting-focused JRPG series. It's a good starting point for newcomers, but even though it still retains a lot of the charm that the series is known for, there is the possibility that it may not be what longtime fans were hoping for. Just like the previous entries, Atelier Yumia revolves around alchemy and has a heavy emphasis on crafting and gathering. But the main difference compared to the other entries in the series is the introduction of an open world environment. Some of the more recent titles have shown a gradual progression in this direction, but Atelier Yumia has a more expansive world that is designed to encourage exploration and discovery. However, the implementation of an open world does present certain challenges. So the question becomes, how effectively does Atelier Yumia integrate this new open world, and do the potential drawbacks impact the overall gameplay experience? I've been playing through the full version of the game for the last few weeks, so in this video I'll be going over my full experience with the PC version of Atelier Yumia to help you decide if it's worth playing. The story revolves around Yumia, a young alchemist that's joined a research team tasked with surveying the Aladissian Empire, the region of the world that Atelier Yumia takes place in. Alchemy in this world is viewed with suspicion, since its use is bordering on taboo due to past events. So because of the distrust of alchemists, Yumia is placed under the watch of Victor and Isla, a brother and sister duo acting as her observers. This dynamic sets the stage for a story that explores themes of prejudice and the potential for redemption. The overarching story does have a bit more of a serious tone compared to some of the other games in the series, and its antagonists are introduced pretty early into the storyline. So I was hoping that after the early introduction, these antagonists would have more of a presence throughout the story. But instead, the narrative tends to focus on smaller stories within each region and their inhabitants. But just like the previous games in this series, there is still a strong focus on character relationships that include a lot of light-hearted interactions and banter, which is something I enjoyed since it was nice to learn more about the characters over time and watch them grow closer as a team. Many of these interactions take place during the main story, but there are also dedicated character quests that focus on individual characters. These quests can range from simple conversations to combat and crafting challenges. Along with the character-focused quests, there are also some repeatable quests that appear within the open world, and side quests that lacked depth and didn't really do much to improve my understanding of the world or the overall narrative. For the most part, they were just basic tasks that didn't have much of an impact, and felt like they were just there to direct me to various parts of the map. Even though there is a main story that takes you across the various regions in the world, each region has their own set of pioneering quests and objectives, so you may find yourself alternating between story-driven phases and exploration-focused pioneering phases. Story segments typically unlock new areas and plot developments, while pioneering efforts are designed to encourage exploration and reward your thoroughness. By completing specific pioneering objectives and increasing your pioneering progress within each region, you'll unlock pioneering quests. Some of these quests unlock previously inaccessible areas within the region, leading to even more exploration. After making enough pioneering progress, you'll also receive some valuable rewards, which include synthesis items, crafting related bonuses, new styles of building architecture, and a few other rewards that can end up being essential to your exploration. So even if you plan to focus on the main story, I would highly recommend working through your pioneering objectives once you start exploring, since the rewards you earn can help you access restricted points of interest and stop you from needing to retrace your steps later. The main driving force of the Atelier games is crafting, and in this game that's no different. So you'll be collecting resources in the open world by harvesting plants, mining minerals, by fishing, by defeating enemies, and various other methods. The materials that you gather can then be crafted into new equipment and items for your characters, so they can improve their performance and survivability in battle, or to create tools that can aid you in your exploration. The world is actually surprisingly large, and it did seem like a few aspects of its design was influenced by some of the more recent open world anime RPGs, but without the gameplay variety and scale seen in those games. However, Atelier Yumia does have a few interesting ideas of its own. At the beginning of the game, you won't be able to explore everywhere. Each region is unlocked based on the main story progress, and even though you'll be able to explore the majority of the areas within each region, it's not always safe to do so. To start off with, the amount of safe areas within each region will be limited, and you'll need to continuously enter corrupted areas known as mana-bound areas to purify them and expand the reach of the research team. As an alchemist, Yumia is the only one that can safely allow a small group to enter these areas. So as you continue through the game, your goal is to explore and purify these mana-bound areas and build new bases so that the rest of the research team can safely investigate the region. Entering the mana-bound areas will continuously drain your energy, which is a resource that is used for various exploration-focused actions, like double and triple jumping, driving your motorbike once it's unlocked, or when crafting various exploration items via quick synthesis. Energy can be restored in various ways while exploring the mana-bound areas, like discovering specific points of interest or harvesting energy recovery plants. So you're encouraged to keep pushing forward through these areas to reach the landmarks used to purify the mana-bound areas. But the catch is that it consumes a large amount of energy in order to complete the purification, so you'll need to make sure you have enough energy when you get there. In addition to the pioneering objectives, mana-bound areas will be one of the main aspects of exploration in this game. But since it's an open world, expect to be constantly distracted by the various other points of interest and activities that can be found. The variety of activities isn't as robust as some of the more recent open world RPGs, so don't expect too much gameplay variety from it, but it does have a few different puzzle and discovery focused activities, as well as some deep base building systems. The bases that you create can be used to store your items, they can be decorated with furniture that you discover blueprints for, and they can be used as a place to focus on your synthesis. Depending on the amount of materials you found in the world, you can create a base from pre-made templates, or you can create your own fully custom bases and save them to presets that can be used in other locations in the world. You can't freely build wherever you want though. You'll only be able to build bases in preset areas. But when you're within these areas, you'll have the freedom to do what you want, as long as it's within the allocated building cost requirements. One thing that I didn't notice at first was that your bases can actually be attacked by monsters when you build them and you don't increase their comfort level. When this happens, the monsters can temporarily destroy objects in the house that you'll eventually be able to repair. But upon discovering a ruined base, you will activate a quest that lets you track down the enemies that did it so you can get your revenge. So you're encouraged to create bases that can provide everyone with sufficient comfort, which I thought was a nice touch. But there were a few issues with the open world that I ran into. On the PC version, I was playing on a system that was using an RTX 3070, a Ryzen 9 5900X, and 64GB of RAM with the game running on an SSD, and I was running into some strange performance issues. I have no idea what the performance is like on other platforms, but my experience on PC was pretty shaky within the first region of the game. The performance was totally fine in all the other regions, but in the first region there were some sections of the map where the frame rate dropped to near unplayable levels, mainly when using fast travel to return to the Atelier. So I needed to restart the game or fast travel to other areas to make it return to normal. I did try lowering the graphical settings and reducing the resolution, but it was still a reoccurring issue. One moment the game would be flawless and then suddenly the frame rate would become a slideshow. The NPC and environmental textures were also pretty low quality. I'm more forgiving of it since this is the series' first attempt at a fully open world game, so sacrifices were most likely necessary for the sake of optimization, so the textures didn't bother me too much. But I am still second guessing myself and wondering if the problems I'm having are an isolated issue that's just happening on my PC. I haven't run into any of these issues on any of the other games I've played recently, so I thought it was still worth bringing to your attention. So keep an eye out for any additional information about PC performance on the full game and not just the demo once the full game actually releases. Atelier Yumia introduces a dynamic action-based combat system, which blends strategic positioning with item-based attacks and character abilities. After coming into contact with an enemy on the field, you'll take control of your assigned party leader and fight alongside two other front row party members that are controlled automatically, with your additional party members waiting in reserve in the back row. It is possible to move freely during combat, but movement is a bit limited, so minor positioning adjustments and evasion will be the main focus when it comes to avoiding attacks. Each character has up to 4 different attack skills that can change depending on the distance from the enemy. These are known as inner range skills and outer range skills. Each of these attacks have a certain amount of charges that acts as a portion of the full combo, each with their own cooldown. So if you don't want to commit to a full combo from one of the attacks, you can interrupt them and begin a combo from another skill. So it's best to think of the combat area as having a close range zone and a long range zone that characters will be able to alternate between depending on the type of attacks they want to do or the range of the attack they want to avoid. In addition to the close and long range attacks, characters can also use items crafted by Yumia. Some of these items can be used when guarding to offer buffs, debuffs, or healing, but there are also some combat focused items that have their own combos, just like a character's attack skills. So you'll be alternating between normal attacks and item attacks to take advantage of elemental weaknesses and the state that enemies are in. A mana surge system also unlocks further into the game, giving characters access to their ultimate attacks. When the environmental mana bar on the left of the screen fully charges after constant item use, your controlled character will enter the mana surge state. While in this state, your character will have access to a strong set of surge skills, which can be used while the environmental mana bar continues to decrease. If this mana fully decreases while your character is still in the mana surge state, it will begin to drain their health instead, and if they are knocked out while in this state, they won't be able to revive during the remaining battle. So you'll need to finish the mana surge by activating the character's maximized mana surge attack, which is a powerful ultimate attack that can scale in power depending on various character focus requirements. For some characters it can be based on the remaining environmental mana consumed, and for others it can be based on their maximum health. But as cool as these ultimate attacks look the first few times, as of recording the animations are unskippable and last way too long, with some taking upwards of roughly half a minute just for the attack to end. They're not something you'll need to use often, but it would be nice if we could just skip them and get back into the fight. Even though the combat is entertaining, outside of evading, it rarely felt like my inputs actually mattered in normal battles while playing through the story. It's possible to use skills in a specific order to maximize on buffs and debuffs, but it didn't feel like it made a huge difference. There's no real payoff for using the different offensive focus systems, so normal fights would just devolve into mashing the different attacks a character had, since being precise didn't matter much, even in the higher difficulties. There were a few instances where the combat system seemed to work well though, and that's during the boss battles where the pressure is put on you and you need to think about positioning, stunning, and attacking properly. I hoped there would be more fights like this during the story, but unfortunately those were few and far between. The close combat camera can also make it hard to observe the battlefield, especially when all the party members are using attacks at the same time. So sometimes you may not notice an enemy's attack marker being cast below you. I tried checking to see if there was a way to change the camera's distance during combat, like you can in the open world, but I couldn't see any additional options for it. The best solution that was available was tilting the camera up at the start of battle to a slightly overhead view, since this created some extra distance and gave a better view of the battlefield. But since I couldn't find a way to save this as the default setting, I just didn't bother using it most of the time. But with that being said, I don't play the Atelier games for deep combat mechanics, so apart from just hoping the combat would be entertaining, I didn't have any other expectations. My main reason for playing was for the character interactions and the highly customizable crafting systems. The Atelier series of games are known for encouraging the player to be self-sufficient. You'll need to gather your own materials and craft your own equipment in order to improve your performance in battle, or to increase your options in the open world. To start off with, your crafting options will be limited, but as you progress through the game, you'll be able to create items and equipment with a variety of powerful effects on them. To start off with, you'll only have access to a basic set of recipes and synthesis facilities, but more can be obtained as you complete quests or when you discover blueprints in the open world during exploration. So eventually, you'll be able to enhance previously crafted gear to improve their performance, unlock crafting skills that can enhance specific stats on the finished synthesis, and build new facilities that give you access to more options, like being able to duplicate materials. The crafting system revolves around enhancing various cores that influence a specific aspect of the synthesis. For example, certain cores will influence the quality of the finished item, and others can influence how many trait crystals the final synthesis will contain. While improving a core, you'll need to assign different materials to the allocated slots. You'll be able to preview the resonance area when selecting an ingredient, and once that ingredient has been assigned to a slot, it will collect any of the drifting mana stars that are within its resonance area. The more drifting mana that is collected, the more that core will be strengthened. The crafting systems in past games are known for being a bit of a puzzle, where constantly moving traits from one material to another and putting time into creating the perfect piece was worthwhile. In Atelier Yumia, equipment does have a variety of effects that can provide characters and items with specific enhancements, but traits that provide stat boosts and other bonuses are crystals that need to be slotted into equipment that you have specifically crafted to contain trait slots. I can't say that I've seen the full extent of what the crafting system in Yumia provides, but it has definitely been streamlined to make it easily accessible to people. It does still have some depth to it, but based on what I've seen so far, it lacks the planning and preparation that the previous games were known for. And so far, the combat system hasn't really done a great job of showcasing the impact that your equipment has on your characters. There are a few items and equipment that you can find within the world that can be equipped on your characters, but this acts as a starting point and you'll barely find enough to keep all of your characters well equipped. So you're encouraged to gather materials and craft for yourself in order to improve your party. There are also various other customization systems that can be used to fine-tune your team, like assigning their starting positions and tweaking their battle tactics. So when they're not the active character during combat, they'll perform in a way that benefits their skills and your playstyle. There's also a skill tree that can be used to learn skills by spending skill points that can be acquired by exploring, completing quests, crafting, and various other ways. Skills are divided into 3 categories: combat, synthesis, and exploration. And learning more skills will make you more capable in each of these respective categories. The skill tree isn't for individual characters though. Instead, it focuses on enhancing various aspects of general gameplay instead. While there are minor differences between each character, they don't have much of a unique identity gameplay-wise. But due to the crafting system, you will be able to craft equipment that can take advantage of certain traits that the characters have. Despite everything I've said, I did enjoy my time with Atelier Yumia. It was a bold first step at creating an open world within the series, and even though my experience had a few issues, it was worth the time I put into it. So if you like the game's emphasis on crafting and cozy open world exploration, and are willing to overlook the possible performance issues on PC, I think Atelier Yumia is worth playing. But if you're someone that prioritizes deep combat mechanics and the puzzle-style crafting gameplay from the previous entries, and even grand stories that don't specifically focus on character interactions, it might be worth trying the newly released demo to see how the game is for yourself before deciding. If you do decide that you want to get the full game after playing the demo, then the data will carry over, so you won't waste any of your previous progress. So if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe to be the first to know when the next video is available. I'll be making some new videos about action games and RPGs very soon, but until I make those videos, here's another review for an open world action RPG that you might find interesting.